Dr. Miller here, and I want to take a few minutes to talk about some of the latest research that is coming out on brain health, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, all of those types of things, and actually the connection, the gut brain connection. The brain has been called the primary brain forever. The gut is now being called the second brain. A great analogy that I heard on the podcast that Dr. Mercola puts out was these two are like good friends that are neighbors and they're at the fence and they're talking to each other. We want them encouraging each other, not bickering and fighting. Because if they're working in conjunction with each other, then everything is better and life is better for both of their families. Well, it's no different than the gut and the brain. We want these two talking together. We want the gut giving the brain the good short chain fatty acids that it needs so that the blood brain barrier stays intact and things don't get through into the brain that cause issues like neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's, and stuff like that. So, did you know that if your gut is inflamed, then basically it starts to break down and things get into the blood system, and then the blood system takes that everywhere, including the brain. And there's a component of when you eat and things that happen that there's a bad byproduct of eating things, especially if you're eating highly processed foods, sugary foods, foods that are not nutrient dense. But when you're eating these things, they will cause inflammation or neural inflammation, and that will also start to affect the brain. And so highly processed foods, sugary foods, things like that start to cause insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is also known as type 3 diabetes, which is one of the causes of Alzheimer's and dementia and neurodegenerative diseases. But you can also have issues with, and you have to think about this, watch your exposure to toxins, watch your exposure to heavy metals, watch your exposure to stress. Can you handle the stress that you get? Do you have time where you can calm down? Do you get good sleep? If you're not getting good sleep and you don't get that good deep sleep at the beginning of your sleep and sleep cycle, then what happens to you is the glymphatic portion of the brain, which is what actually opens up and cleans the brain out, scrubs your brain for lack of a better term. That glymphatic cycle doesn't happen. And if that doesn't happen, things can start to, amyloid and things of that nature, build up in the brain and cause problems. So as we were talking about lipopolysaccharides, we have to start to think about how can we get the gut and the brain in good shape so that the things that are sealed remain sealed and they don't have to open up, create leaky gut, create leaky brain, start to give you foggy brain or confusion and things of that nature. Well, the thing that you have to start to think about, the thing that you got to start to look at is what foods am I getting in that feed the microbiome and allow the microbiome to produce the short chain fatty acids like butyrate that help seal all of this off. And so it's pretty simple. You've got to stay away from the highly processed foods, the sugary foods, the foods that have tons of chemicals, um, emulsifiers. I love chocolate. Truffles are awesome. The problem is that truffle, that creamy center, the way they keep the chocolate from getting hard is they use an emulsifier. Well, that lining in your gut is fat. And so if you're eating an emulsifier, what do you think happens to that when it gets down into your gut, into your stomach? It starts to break that down. Your body needs butyrate and things of that nature, secretory IgA and whatnot, to actually help keep everything sealed off and healthy. If you have those things, then you can take the occasional hit and you'll recover and do quite well. But it's the continued assault that causes a problem. So, a recent study that was performed for 12 weeks took a group of individuals and they did what is called the MoCA score, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. When they did that, they saw that these people were mildly cognitively impaired. And so they started one group on probiotics and one group on a placebo. After the 12 weeks, they saw that the group that was on the probiotic, their MoCA scores actually improved, meaning that they were no longer mildly cognitively impaired. Now, along with this, they also did some lifestyle things, but the lifestyle was applied to both. So the lifestyle changes also helped everybody, but the group with the probiotics got better. So if probiotics can help the body get better and help the brain, help neurodegenerative diseases, what do the probiotics do? What do the short chain fatty acids do? Well, they actually help start to control what is called the root cause, and functional medicine doctors are always looking for this. What's the root cause of the inflammation? What is it that's causing the inflammation to happen, and how can we get rid of this? Is it stress? Is it lifestyle? Are we not getting enough sleep? Are we not getting good nutrition, good exercise? Are we, like I said before, stressed? And do we have family and friends and community around us that helps us actually want to do better and supports us? That's very, very important. You have to have those things in those groups that, so when you feel down, they've got your back. I often hear a lot of times that, oh, my Alzheimer's is genetic and that there's nothing I can do. And that has been proven time and time again to be false. Dr. Bredesen's work that has been going on now for a couple of decades absolutely shows that degeneration, neurodegeneration can be halted and reversed to a certain extent. How much damage have you done? How long have you been in this state? There is that aspect of things. Now, where I wanted to go with that, with the genetics, is remember, genetics only load the gun. It's your lifestyle and the environmental factors that actually pull the trigger. And you have control of those. You are not helpless. So, as we look at these things that cause inflammation, and we're starting to get down to the root cause of that inflammation, just remember the composition and diversity of the bacteria in your gut will determine whether or not you have a pro-inflammatory microbiome or an anti-inflammatory microbiome. Let's get a little nerdy here for just a couple of minutes. There are two families of bacteria in your gut primarily. I mean, there's a lot of families, but the two biggest that take up about 60 to 70% of the microbiome composition are Bacteroides and Firmicutes. The Bacteroides is, as I tell my patients, it's the anti-inflammatory portion. The Bacteroides are very anti-inflammatory. The firmi the Firmicutes, that's very pro-inflammatory. And you're supposed to have a ratio of more Bacteroides than Firmicutes. So when we're having that problem, the thing we have to think about is how do we encourage the growth of the Bacteroides to balance out the Firmicutes? The other analogy I use with this is it's like your kids if you had children. You watch what their friends are, what they do, who their family is, because you don't want your children to be impressionable and fall in with a bad group. If they fall in with a bad group, they're going to do bad things. And we don't want that to happen to the microbiome. It's very important to watch that. And there are ways that you can actually manipulate that now. So it's very important to remember, if I'm doing things like eating high sugar, eating rancid fats, eating lots of seed oils, and doing these things, the immune system is going to be chronically activated, and you're not going to be able to shut it down. The little secret here, here's your pro tip. What shuts down the immune system? Your bioflavonoids and polyphenols. That's the dirty little secret that they're not going to tell you on all the Humira and biologics that shut down the immune system. They modulate the immune system. Those things are needed. And this is one of my knocks against the carnivore diet. A lot of people in the carnivore diet are realizing that they have to have the microbiome. And, I've done this for 30 years now. So when I look at this, I've seen veganism, vegetarianism, paleo, autoimmune paleo, keto. I've seen all of these fad diets come and go. The way I tell people to think about these things is, if you're heavy and you have a problem with insulin, hey, keto, carnivore, paleo, these all do great to help modulate that down, to help increase insulin sensitivity. And that even your vegan and vegetarian actually help modulate that, because you're not typically getting simple carbohydrates. But that's one of the things to realize. This is actually what these diets are designed to do. So I'm very nerdy about the microbiome. I love the microbiome. My wife Jessica is very about hormones. And you cannot just take one section and say, hey, if I address this, then we're good. No. And we also don't want to get into green pharmacy. We all know about pharmacy, where it's a pill for an ill. Green pharmacy is a supplement for a symptom. It's the same thing. We want to put that power in your hands so you aren't dependent on those things. It's very important not to be dependent. So, what are things that you can do that will help you take control of your own health? So, let's think about this. Number one, there is a bug in the gut. There's actually three that are keystone species. I do a test called the GI map, and the GI map has three keystone species. One is Akkermansia, one is Roseburia, and the other is Phacobacterium prodnitzii. So these three they all work together, and they help keep the gut, the slime layer, that first defense layer of your immune system, in good shape. You want them to be good. How do you get them to be good? Well, Akkermansia, who is probably the one you've heard the most about, he, she, it is in the news. And so that bug really likes colors. Your blues from blueberries, your reds from pomegranate. It likes those bright colors. Those bioflavonoids are what help bring him out. And so you want to be getting those types of foods with a lot of fiber. You need fiber that's both soluble and insoluble fiber. It takes both types. And it's better to get those from foods than it is to get them from a box or a canister, or, I'm thinking about Metamucil and psyllium husks and stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of those. I do drink a very fiber rich drink in the morning, and I do Ultra GI Replenish. I do Ultra Inflamex 360 and Endorphin. These give me about 19 grams of fiber that are both soluble and insoluble, and it's to help maintain the environment of the gut. So you can get those any number of ways though. It's just easier for me to get that in a drink. And then I generally eat one meal a day. I tend to overeat, so I have to control that. That's part of this game, is learning what you do and how do you control those things. So for me, that helps me keep my weight down. It helps keep my environment for these bugs at the best it can be. Number two is going to be butyrate. How do you enhance butyrate production? So one of the things I didn't cover is how much fiber should you have? If you read Dr. Terry Walls's work, she says, hey, 30 grams up to 40 grams. And those are for her patients who are autoimmune patients. That amount of fiber really helps feed the microbiome and balance the microbiome and things like that. Now, if you have an infection in there, you're feeding bad bugs as well as good bugs. You do want to do a little house cleaning, and then you want to really support these things. I tell my patients 25 to 30 grams, shoot for that, because my patients aren't as sick as her patients. And that 25 to 30 grams in the research tends to be really well supported for supporting a microbiome that is generally healthy. And that microbiome will produce butyrate, which helps seal the brain and the gut off. Next is supporting the gut-brain connection. And how do you do that? Well, stunner, here's a broken record. Get rid of the junk food. Get rid of the high sugary foods. Once you really feel good and you feel like you have things under control, then enjoying a piece of birthday cake at the birthday or wedding cake at the wedding, that's okay. It's not going to kill you or take you down. It's about resilience. And so we want to make sure that that is happening. And so no junk food, good fiber, control inflammation. Whether the inflammation is from stress of you thinking all the time, hey, try some 478 breathing, or go for a walk in nature. Watch a comedy, watch something that makes you laugh, that gets you out of that fight or flight type of condition. That in this day and age, if we're not doing five things at once, we're pretty lazy, and that's just not good. So not only do we want to avoid the junk foods, but we want probiotic rich foods. I prefer people to get their probiotics from fermented foods. Now, if somebody's microbiome is really low in diversity and number, we do want to seed a little bit. We want to have the probiotics going in there so that the body has the best chance to come back and do what it needs to do. And number four, let's really think about that diversity. I had a patient, I'm in the Midwest. I work with lots of farmers. I work with lots of factory workers. And around here, it's either they love vegetables or they hate vegetables. And for you to truly have diversity in your microbiome, you have to have diversity in your diet. And that is a diversity of all the colors and all the different types of vegetables so that you can eat these things and it helps your body bring out the players that are going to keep you healthy. And once again, we got to watch if you're like me and you overeat, then you have to be careful with that. And so, I'm kind of a one meal a day slash snacker, but I try to keep my feeding window in that 6 to 8 hour time period because I also produce a lot of insulin. I have that thrifty gene. So if World War III comes about and I need to survive on little to nothing, my body is very efficient at that. But the flip side of that is all I have to do is start to think about eating and I gain weight very easily. So there is that component, but we do want that diversity. That diversity is very, very important. And so, just to kind of wrap things up here, look at your environment. What is your exposure to toxic fumes? What is your exposure to heavy metals? What is your exposure to the plastics? Are you gluten sensitive? Look at your tongue. If you have that deep crack like I do, that center groove, then most likely you're gluten sensitive. Are you gluten sensitive? Get rid of gluten. Is gluten good or bad? It's hard to tell because we still need to do more studies on the residual pesticides that are on most commercial or commodity grains. And is that what's breaking us down? Or is it truly the gluten? Or is it a little bit of both? So the environmental factors. Keep your genetics in check with lots of good leafy greens. And like I was talking about a little bit before, if you're having a problem with getting your veggies in, then the thing that you have to do is maybe just drink a smoothie and put your greens in there. Now, am I telling you every day to have a spinach kale smoothie? No, absolutely not. Variety is the spice of life. Mix it up. If you would like a how to build a better smoothie uh, recipe, send me an email with your name and email address, and I will send you a PDF that gives you a good framework on how to build a good smoothie. And then the other things that I want to talk about, insulin resistance. I have the APOE3/4 genetics. I'm not a 4/4, which is a little worse, but I do have the 3/4. That predisposes me to 20% late stage Alzheimer's. And so, one of the ways that I mitigate that risk is by watching my insulin resistance, controlling how my insulin does. Just so you know, your insulin, fasting insulin, should be between 3 and 4. And if you don't know what a fasting insulin is, just ask your doctor what a fasting insulin is and he can take it for you. But he's probably not going to know what to do with it. If your insulin is high, 6 or more, then you have to watch that. You have to get in there and start to control that. And you can do that through a vegan diet, through a vegetarian, strict vegetarian diet. Easiest through keto and paleo or carnivore. But I'd really only do those for a couple of weeks because you will change the microbiome and things will start to get more pro-inflammatory. The narrower the window you eat in, the narrower it becomes and the more stringent it has to become. Also, learning good, learning new things. Whether that's, hey, I'm 54 going on 55 and I'm picking up the guitar. Maybe you want to crochet. Maybe you want to do Sudoku. Maybe you want to do crosswords. Maybe you want to learn how to underwater basket weave. I don't know. But learning new things is absolutely something that challenges the brain. And as you challenge that brain, feed it with good foods, feed it with good fats, your avocados, your raw nuts, those types of things. That's what actually helps rebuild the brain. And so let me take one last look here, learning new things. And so, yes, you can possibly slow, well, we know you can slow it, but possibly even start to reverse the cognitive decline as we saw earlier with the patients that were in that 12-week study. They actually started to reverse their cognitive decline and increase their scores. So it is within your power to be able to do that. Have a great day. And just remember, we're Integrated Health of Indiana. If you need guidance on any of this, feel free to reach out, 812-346-1757. If you want that how to build a better smoothie recipe, go ahead and hit us up. You can email me at drmiller at integratedhealthofindiana.com, or go to our webpage, integratedhealthofindiana.com, and click on the email Dr. Miller and just give me your email, name, and you want the recipes, and I'll send it to you. You all have a great day, and we'll see you next time.